वियतनाम भारत की एक्ट ईस्ट पॉलिसी और विजन महासागर का एक मुख्य स्तंभ है। इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र में भी हमारा कॉमन आउटलुक है। हम अपनी सुदृढ़ होती हुई रक्षा और सुरक्षा सहयोग से रूल ऑफ लॉ, शांति, स्थिरता और समृद्धि के प्रति योगदान देते रहेंगे।
Also shared our vision on the region and the world, and we reach a high level of mutual understanding as to how important the relationship between India and Vietnam is to both countries. We would link together our strategic visions and development strategies to better address the turmoil of the situation in the world today. We will elevate defense and security cooperation to become a strategic pillar to contribute to strengthening an environment of peace and stability.
India and Vietnam just upgraded their defense ties. Cameras flashed, agreements were signed, the Indo-Pacific was invoked, but one word was missing: BrahMos. And honestly, that missing word may be the biggest story of all, because this is no longer just about diplomacy. It is about missiles, deterrence, and a quiet power shift unfolding right in China's backyard. Vietnam wants something India has, something that Pakistan got a glimpse of during Operation Sindoor, something China fears could fundamentally alter the military balance in the South China Sea. I'm talking about the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile. If this deal goes through, it won't just be another defense export for India. It could become one of the most important strategic moves India has made in Southeast Asia in years. So Vietnamese President To Lam is in New Delhi. PM Modi and the Vietnamese leaders spoke about regional security, maritime stability, and China's growing assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific. Publicly, both sides announced an enhanced, comprehensive strategic partnership. But behind the carefully drafted statements lies the real conversation: BrahMos. Reports suggest Vietnam is looking at a possible 6,000 crore deal for the missile system, including training and logistical support. And Vietnam is not interested in BrahMos for just symbolism. It wants it because of the South China Sea. This is where China has spent years expanding aggressively, building artificial islands, militarizing reefs, deploying naval assets, and asserting claims over waters also claimed by Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan. Now, Beijing's message has been simple: this is China's sphere of influence. Vietnam's response is equally simple: not without a fight. A shore-based BrahMos battery means that any hostile naval ship entering range is suddenly vulnerable to a Mach 2.8 supersonic missile traveling at nearly 1 kilometer per second. That is terrifying for any navy, because the faster a missile travels, the smaller the reaction window becomes. Detection, interception, countermeasures, everything gets compressed in seconds. Now, Vietnam knows it cannot match China ship for ship. No Southeast Asian nation can really, but it does not need to. It only needs to make Chinese aggression painfully expensive. That is modern deterrence. And that is exactly what BrahMos offers. For India, this is much bigger than just selling missiles. This is India exporting strategic influence. The Philippines already has BrahMos deployed along its coastline. Indonesia has signed on. If Vietnam joins in, 3 major Southeast Asian nations facing Chinese maritime pressure would all be operating the same Indian-made missile system. Think about that for a second. India is quietly building a regional deterrence network across the South China Sea, not with military bases, not with troops, but with strategic capability. And Beijing understands exactly what that means because every BrahMos battery deployed in Southeast Asia complicates China's naval calculations. Every deployment increases the risks for Chinese warships operating near disputed waters. Every new customer strengthens India's strategic footprint in the Indo-Pacific. This is also a massive boost for India's defense manufacturing ambitions. India's defense exports have surged in recent years. Domestic production crossed 1.27 lakh crores between 2023 and 2024, and exports have hit a record high of 23,000 crores in the same period. And BrahMos is becoming the crown jewel of that export push. For decades, India was one of the world's biggest arms importer. Now, it is increasingly becoming a defense supplier. That shift matters geopolitically because countries do not just buy weapons, they buy partnerships, they buy training systems, they buy interoperability, maintenance ecosystems, and of course, long-term strategic relationships. In simple terms, if Vietnam buys BrahMos, Vietnam becomes strategically closer to India. India and Vietnam have been building defense ties quietly for years. Since 2010, both countries have maintained annual defense policy dialogues. India extended a $500 million defense credit line to help modernize Vietnam's military. In 2023, just a few years ago, India even gifted the indigenously built missile corvette INS Kirpan to Vietnam. It's been a slow, methodical relationship built up. And both countries are united by one common concern: China's growing military assertiveness. That shared concern is now translating into real strategic cooperation. It's not rhetoric, it's not symbolic statements, it's actual military capability. There is another interesting layer here. BrahMos is a joint India-Russia venture, which means Moscow's approval matters. Some reports suggest Russia has already cleared the transfer to Vietnam. Now that is significant because it signals that despite Russia's own complicated relationship with China, Moscow is still willing to back India's growing defense footprint in Southeast Asia. It also clears one major obstacle for the deal. Now the focus shifts to negotiations, technical details, pricing, training, packages, and timelines. And these deals can take time. The Philippines agreement took years before finally being signed in 2022. Indonesia's discussions also stretched over an extended period before moving forward. But politically, the direction now looks very, very clear. Pakistan saw what BrahMos could do during Operation Sindoor. The Philippines has already deployed it. Indonesia is on board. Vietnam may be next. And suddenly, India is no longer just responding to China's influence in the Indo-Pacific. It is shaping the battlefield. China spent years building the so-called string of pearls, ports, infrastructure projects, and strategic footholds across the South China Sea, the Indian Ocean. India's answer to that looks very different. No overseas military bases, no giant naval outposts. Instead, India is building something quieter. A missile-backed strategic network stretching across China's maritime neighbourhood. And that may be far more difficult for Beijing to counter. Click on the bell icon and subscribe to timesaxis. We will bring you more news and explainers and explain the world from India's strategic lens. See you soon.